I'm a little unsure about the path, to be honest with you. I'm 39 years old.
The second career, there are so many people that just see the goodness of this occupation and that you can finally support a family from the get-go. It's very attractive.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilots, welcome to another great interview episode of Ready for Pushback. My name is Nick Fialka, and you found another fun hour of conversation with me and my friend, Wes Wages. Wes reached out to me via some email and asking for some advice, and he sent me this long email that was a lot of things. And I was like, TLDR, why don't you just come on the show and we'll talk about it? And I think it's valuable because we dive deep on a lot of different issues that I think affect a lot of pilots. Wes has a very successful business. Wes is a husband. Wes is an employer. He has lots of responsibilities, and he also wants to be a professional pilot. And I really appreciate this conversation. I think that you will get a lot out of it, and it will help you find some sweet little nuggets that will be very helpful for you. And I got to tell you, after I recorded this show, Wes sent me a handwritten thank you note, which you know I love a thank you note. And he also sent me a bottle of whiskey, which was super awesome. And I'm very, very thankful that he sent me a bottle of whiskey. Quick way to my heart, man. Cigars and whiskey. What man doesn't love it? So I think this was just a fun conversation. He's such an engaging guy, and you're going to love it. So sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. Hey, pilot. Did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, tridenthomeloans.com, and check them out. All right. Welcome back to the podcast interview episode today, and it's going to be a very special pivot. Today is going to be a live coaching call, and I got an email from this gentleman. His name is Wes Wages. He owns a company called Armosa Studios. So anybody need any video, visual effects work, stuff like that, go look up armosastudios.com. I will have a link in those show notes as always. And Wes reached out. He's got some questions and we haven't talked about it at all. Yeah. So I'm just going to rock and roll with it. So welcome to the show, my man.
Man, thanks so much, Nick. Yeah, big fan of the podcast and what you guys are doing. And for someone who is not a commercial pilot, it's been very beneficial so far.
Yeah. So tell me, set the stage. Is your life situation right now?
Yeah. So my flying history, I've always been fascinated by flying. In fact, I still remember Delta's phone number, the 1-800 number, 1-800-225-2525, because as a kid, I used to call it all the time. And just the call, like, hey, I need to know from Memphis to Orlando, what's the cost? And I was just fascinated by flying.
That's awesome.
I still think the number works. I checked it recently. I think it was Northwest at the time, actually, in Delta. And then in high school, I took a few flying lessons at the local airport in a Cessna 152, but then just never finished, which is kind of the story. I got married. My wife is amazing, and she said, you should finish your pilot's license. And so I finished my license probably 12 years ago. got my private, and then I had kids. And so I haven't flown in 10 years. And that's just the story. And I own a video production business, as you said, but I think in the next few years, I want to go with ATP. And I'm a little unsure about the path, to be honest with you. I'm 39 years old and I have a lot of questions. So this would be a second career for me.
Yeah. And I love that. The second career, there are so many people that just see the goodness of this occupation and that you can finally support a family from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so it's very attractive. And so I'm glad you're going down that path. All right. So where do you stand now? What do you have done and how many hours and all that?
I'm at about 135 hours. And one question I have for later is like, does my 1,500 hours have to be piloting command? But also, I want to go to the family side as well. I have 4 children, 9, 7, 5, and 4 right now. And so I'm like, okay, if I were to go down this path, let's just say in 6 to 7 years, kind of what I've been told to kind of accrue all those hours, what is life going to look like? Being a dad and family person is very important to me. And so what is that going to look like after, like as an airline pilot? And then 2, the big question I have is just like, what is the best path? I don't believe, honestly, like, I guess military is the right thing. I'm 39 years old. So then I know
that ship has sailed.
Yeah, it's gone. I actually got pretty defeated recently. I was like, oh, I can't be an air traffic controller at all. I am too old now. But then also I know the ATP school, the fast track, I'm flying with an instructor right now to get my instrument. To be honest with you, me flying 2 hours a week is just not going to cut it. So yeah, lots of questions there and just looking for advice of kind of what to do. The podcast has been very beneficial to say, oh, I need to be volunteering. I need to be making sure that like my resume, which I've never used because I own my own business, is just kind of be up to par. And I have a few years to do that.
Yeah, don't discount yourself. Even business owner, I think when you get there, the first thing the interviewer is going to think is, oh, this person is focused on customer service. This is already a good fit. He's already got a lot of things going for him. So yeah. I wouldn't sweat that at all. Yeah. Are you thinking, man, I could say you live in Tennessee, right?
Yep. Live in Nashville.
In Nashville, Nash Vegas. Awesome. Yep. And do you live next to Taylor Swift?
She just moved out. So I'm not sure what she's doing. She had to do a concert or something like that.
Yeah, out to the Hamptons or something.
Kanye lives next to me, so that's probably the reason she moved, I had to guess.
Oh, man. All right. So you're flying a couple times a week right now. And you talked about going down, there's the puppy mill path where you can go to a flight school that will just essentially teach you to get your ratings and bang it out very, very quickly. But there's this balance, right? Because they're probably not in your backyard.
Right.
And so you're going to have to take on a load of debt and be gone from your family for that period of time. And so that may or may not be the way to do it, but you'll get there much faster. Or you go to a local flight school and continue down the ratings path. What is your ability to commit time to go and get these hours?
Yeah, so interesting. I'm working with a flight instructor right now. We're trading time. So because I'm helping him build an online ground school with video, and I think it's pretty awesome. So we have a great relationship right now, but also it's just slow. And so I realize if I'm 39 years old, that's going to be 10 years, I'm assuming right now. I do live about 40 minutes away from a flight school that I could possibly go to. My first hiccup right now is I'm 6'5" and I'm 265 pounds.
Big guy.
And I was actually told by this school that I have to be under 250. So I need to lose some weight.
Okay.
Because what they said is they have to keep the fuel tanks topped off. You know what I mean? So,
oh my gosh.
Which was just interesting. That's my first hurdle there. I'm like, okay, need to lose. I'm doing 75 hard right now so I can get some weight off.
I love that.
But then, yeah, it's being away from family. What does that look like? I mean, they're saying they're flying 5 to 6 days a week.
Yep.
Well, not that. I'm also the CEO of my business. I have 9 employees.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, do I just completely leave that?
Well, do you have a right-hand man? Do you have a person?
I do. So I have a great team and I've kind of structured my company to where as a CEO, I can work as much or as little as I need to right now. So I'm in a great spot there. I have income. I can take time off. But yeah, driving to the airport, flying, and then I'd love to be home before 4 to get the kids off the bus and all.
Yeah. Do you have the income to be able to pay out of pocket, or are you going to have to pay for loans and stuff like that if you really start moving forward with hours?
Yeah, I'm very blessed and have a privilege of like being in real estate. So I do have the income where I could just pay for the school
Okay.
And I've been quoted for about 75 to 80,000.
Yeah.
Kind of just for the fast track.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So 2 different being gone parts, right? There's the being gone part from the family, and there's the being gone part from the second family, which is the business. And certainly number 1 is being present to your family and knowing that. But also, it really depends on the dynamic with your spouse. And that has been my thing, right? I spent a year in Africa deployed, and my wife had a baby while I was gone. And it was not awesome.
Yeah.
She's amazing, and our relationship is amazing. And while I was there, 3 other people I was deployed with ended up getting divorced. So that part is probably the most crucial linchpin in all of it is, what does your wife say?
Yeah.
So what does she say?
My wife is 110% on board right now, and she's the one that's told me to do this.
Okay.
It was pretty amazing. She's the CEO of an emotional health company. And so we're able to kind of get into the motions pretty quickly. And she's 100% on board. And honestly pushes me when I have doubt more than I push myself.
Man.
So she's in. My kids, not really sure. You know what I mean? They're younger. They're like, hey, I don't want dad to be home or be away from home too much.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
But also,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to also show my kids that like, this has been a dream of mine. I put it on the back burner for a long time because I wanted to like get in the younger years and be there for you. But also like, I want you to pursue your dreams as much as, and I want to show you that example. But it's also tough because it's like, well, what does that look like? And I kind of want to hear from you as like, even as a pilot, as an airline pilot, what does that look like? And what is that relationship to your kids?
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I'll tell you this. Back to your spouse, right? That support that she provides is key.
Yeah.
When we moved, our family moved from Texas to California because the Navy called us back up. We brought the kids out of school and we brought them out they were in their norm. They were comfortable. And my wife could have been negative about it and like, oh, I can't believe we're having to do this. But the way she was able to articulate is, this is the adventure we have before us. And this is the opportunity we have. This is what Pop's going to do. And we are all going to be there for him and work with him, and we'll be together. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so probably you have a 9 and a 7. I also have kind of that zone. And it has been a slow adjustment, but it's trended in the correct direction. And everybody's found their new normal with that.
Yeah.
I would say don't be afraid of that part of it, because if you have that support, then you will be successful because the 2 of you together make that successful. Man, and for the pilot that's listening, I'm telling you, if you have to be dead honest with yourself and with your partner, because if they are even slightly against it, it's not going to work. Because the sacrifice right now, you think like, hey, I'm going to sacrifice now so I can make, millions of dollars across my career, whatever, all this brass ring stuff. But really, it's the day to day that makes it or breaks it.
Yeah.
And
so the coming home at night and kind of like, what's that relationship when you get home there?
Right. Absolutely. So what is life like on the line for a professional pilot? I'll tell you that it depends. Here's what it depends on: where your path takes you, right? Because you live in Nashville. You could do a lot of different things. You could fly corporate and you could find some rich person that you fly for, and it could be a really great setup or a really terrible setup. If you have a person that really understands family, but you're on their leash. And if they want to go flying on Christmas Eve, like, you're out of here. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be flying on a lot of Christmas Eves, but with the corporate thing, that may or may not be a good avenue. Maybe they have multiple pilots. Maybe it's a larger company that's based out of Nashville and they have an entire little flight department. That could be really cool too, because you might be home a lot more as like just a couple days gone a week. So that's one avenue. The second avenue would be like a 91K, like FlexJet or NetJets or any of the larger fractionals or Jet Edge, things like that, where they do 7 days on, 7 days off. And your schedule.com always here we go. And you can plan your life a lot better. Your paycheck will be slightly lower, not much lower. Everybody's in contract negotiations now. We'll see how that all pans out. But if it's easier to be gone for a week and your wife gets a kid and get all the kids out to school and get the kids picked up and make dinner and get the clothes washed for tomorrow and, all those things, that's where it becomes tricky. When they're little, not a big deal. And when they're older and out of the house, even easier.
Right.
So for me, right, I'm at a major and my schedule is like 14 to 18 days on, depending on the month and what I can hold and all that stuff. But it's a couple things. First off, I live in the base that my company is based in. And I am a big fan of trying to find a place like that where you can have a job that you get up Monday morning, you drive to the airport, you do some flying on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you're home Wednesday evening. It doesn't seem like that much. It doesn't seem like you are constantly gone. It seems like you're always home. And that's the fun thing. The tricky part is how important are the weekends, right? Like, are we doing soccer? Are we doing lacrosse? Are we doing, I don't know, it's Nashville. Are you doing country music lessons?
Yeah, there is hockey here too, guys.
Hockey.
I mean, yeah, we do basketball and soccer, and yeah, my wife's actually an assistant coach, so.
Of course, man. Yeah. So that can be the tricky part. For our family right now, we do piano lessons and we don't do any big sporting, like the sports stuff adds a layer of time and logistics as a single person operation for your wife and for you. And I'm sure you've seen it before, but the beauty of having two people at home is that division of labor, right? Oh gosh, we got to go to hockey practice or we got to go do whatever, instead of having to like pack everybody in the car, make sure everybody's got a snack and all those things. So that's where the kind of weight of it happens. I feel like I owned a business before I did this, and I had an RV park, right, in Florida. I work way less not running that business, even doing the podcast, even do interview coaching, all those things that I do with Spitfire and all my little side hustles because I can't get enough. I feel like I've got an inordinate amount of time, especially when I'm home, because when you're home and you're not doing that night math and all the thoughts of like running this business. Yeah. Also, I'm not having to clean up sewage spills in the middle of the night or drip faucets or all those things. Like it was a 24-hour job. So however you're with this company, like is the plan to continue to operate kind of all these different things? No, I mean, if I were to work in full commercial aviation, I would either sell or exit the company without exiting. Yeah, absolutely. And just be the owner. Yeah. Sit back and let it ride. And that's important because if you can do something like that, that really frees and allows you to really be focused on your family. Because that's what it comes down to, right? Yep. Yeah, because I know a lot of pilots have the jobs because they are home a lot. So they have kind of a side job that they're doing. Everybody is a financial advisor, but they should only choose Timothy P. Pope, certified financial planner, who is my awesome sponsor. But that's right. Timothy P. Pope is a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Also, you can join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance and strategies for professional pilots on the brand new Pilot Money podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Everybody's got this funny side hustle, and this one is mine. I fell into it. I didn't go out looking for a side hustle, but I'm so thankful for it because of this. And so if it allows you to grow, then awesome. But if it's a huge detractor and adding layers of stress, because when you're on the road, when you're on the road and you land in Fargo, North Dakota, and it's negative 1,000 degrees outside, and it's 2:00 in the morning when you land and you've got to sleep, and then you have to take a red eye or something like that. You've got like all of those things. You're not going to take a red eye from Fargo. Everybody's judging me. But you have to manage your life with rest. Like that is so important. When you're on the road, man, my focus is like working out and rest and not eating first class meals. If I have to take lots of phone calls and stuff like that, or like when I'm asleep, I'm do not disturb on my phone and it's on silent. And I don't want to be stressed out at maybe I'm missing something, because you're not going to rest well. And that's going to come back and haunt you in the long run. So
Yeah.
you have to be honest with yourself with that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, because, what I do right now, we travel quite a bit and we're out doing productions and shoots. And so there's a lot of we shoot in golden hour and the sunrise and the sunset. So it's like early mornings, late nights. And you're absolutely right. So, I feel a little bit of that right now. And as a CEO, I've tried to work myself out of that to get the business really healthy to where I could pursue this second career. And one of the questions I have, Nick, is that am I too old? I know I'm 39 and I'm looking at all these schools and everybody on there is 22 years old, you know what I mean? And they have a lot in front of them. So will I be the old guy in the classroom?
No.
Which I'm okay with.
No, you'll be one of the older guys. When I got hired at my major, there was a guy that was 59. And I recently talked to a guy that was 60. And 10 years of earnings at a major airline pay, I mean, that's 300 and something grand a year. It's probably starts off as 200 and something grand a year. I don't think you're too old. I think it's all about your commitment. I am a fan of getting, if you're going to go, rip off the Band-Aid and go. If you mess around for 10 years, it'll never happen. And so that family decision to be I'm going in feet first. The cool part is I was actually just on the phone with Bill Sims from Spitfire right before this conversation. And we were talking about the fact that you can pay with time or you can pay with money. And right now, you can go to the flight school, you can get your hours, you can become a CFI, you can go and do something like pipeline work or all of those jobs that nobody wants to go do, but you can just bang out a ton of hours, like a low time job, and get up to being able to hold a restricted ATP quickly. And in a couple of years, you can be on with a regional if you want to, and you're making over $100,000 a year. Easy. So that's the other part, is having your house in order. I'll tell you what, if you're holding 30 grand on your credit card right now, it's not the time to do it. If you've got 3 car payments and your kids are in private school and you've got the boat and you've got the Tiffin motorhome and all of those things, if your debt is going to crush you, man, you've got to be real deliberate about that. You live in Nashville, you're right down the street from the Financial Peace University there. And
Dave
Ramsey, baby. And he would probably tell you that do the things to advance your family, but do it deliberately, do it on purpose, right? Because it'll come back. If you're going to pull a home equity line of credit on a rental house and get that 60, 70, 80 grand, what's the repayment? What's the rate on that? And all these things. So
yeah,
these are all certainly things to consider, but also probably a line of credit's a lower interest rate than getting any kind of financial aid from a bank, which is probably going to be 8 or 12%. I'm just making that up. I don't even know. But
yeah, so right now, I mean, I did look at Sallie Mae just to say, if I could even pay cash for this, cool, but also like to have a little bit of safety net. And Sallie Mae was at 4%.
Okay.
But yeah, we have no car debts. We do have a house debt, and that's it.
Yeah.
Our business is debt free. So I feel like I've been using these last 10 years to kind of build some wealth so I could possibly do this. And to be honest with you, running a business is tough. And so at that second career, I'm really thinking about that. I can go work and come home and not have to think about the sales, not have to think about hiring or firing and all of that stuff. I can just go to work.
Yeah, there's way less drama. All you got to do is have to listen to some boomer talk about how the contract sucks or something he saw on the news or something stupid.
Yeah, I love that. Which is interesting. I do want to ask about pay structure. So,
okay,
let's just say I go ahead and pay this $80,000, $90,000, go to a school, and in a year and a half, have my 1,500 hours.
Yep.
Where am I going and what's that next step?
Sure. So if you're able to get your ATP, right, it depends. I'll say it depends. When we are recording this right now, it is April in 2023. So when we're recording this right now, there is a big backlog of first officers, of people with ATP. And so the point of pain at a regional airline right now is the fact that they don't have enough captains, like people with that time already. And so there's this big sucking sound from the majors that are pulling all these captains from the regionals as soon as they've got the minimums to get to the major. But then they can't fly enough planes because they don't have enough captains, but they can't get first officers enough hours fast enough to move them up to make them captains. And so they're just kind of like clogging the pipe right now with these first officers. That'll ebb out a little bit. And so it kind of depends. So best case scenario, people need first officers at regionals, and you hop onto a regional and you commute from Nashville. You guys are going to stay in Nashville, I'm guessing?
We plan to, yeah, but we're both remote now, so we could kind of do anything.
Yeah, you could. I certainly wouldn't move for the regional because that'll probably be a relatively short stop, couple years, but I would look at what's close, right? From Nashville, what flies out of a lot of things flying to Nashville, which is really good. You can get to New York very easy. You can get to Atlanta very easily. You can get to Chicago. You can get to Dallas. It's a little bit of further flight. And so I would kind of draw my circle of like, who's got bases within about an hour-ish from where I live and commute from there. So that's what it would look like, is forcefully commuting. And also you would need to consider what are the junior bases and what are the senior bases, because they may have, even if somebody's got a base in Nashville or somebody's got a base in Atlanta, if it's their senior base, you're going to be commuting to Miami and going to their junior base and being that guy doing that. That's what happened to me in Chicago. I was living in Pensacola and having to commute 2 legs to Chicago. And I did it for like probably 8 months or so. And it was miserable. I hated every second of it. But I also had a mindset that I probably shouldn't have at that point. That was all mindset.
Yeah.
There are other avenues to getting enough flight time, and that's back to the 135 idea. Or there are companies like Atlas or like Southern or iAero or Kalitta. There are other companies out there that fly large cargo aircraft that are always looking to hire people and open their taps up a little bit easier as well. It just kind of depends on what their minimums are. I mentioned those companies without really knowing what their mins are. So that's what you would do, is just take a look at what the mins are and what is available, because you just want to kind of keep progressing. And the good part is you just want to look at what the next step is. You don't need to look 10 steps down the road thinking, man, I'm going to fly for UPS. So let me work backwards and figure out how to fly for UPS, because in 4 years, maybe UPS doesn't exist. Maybe UPS is merged with FedEx or something else happens. Like, you can't control all of that, and then all your hopes are dashed, right?
Yeah.
So kind of be liquid with it and grow where you're planted with that, I think.
Well, I was kind of looking at that. I saw a job for Contour Air, which is a regional, and they're based in Nashville. And it says total time 750 minimum, 1,000 recommended, multi-engine 50, and 100 recommended.
Yeah, I'd recommend anything. But the fact of the matter is they probably need pilots like crazy. So the thing I would look at with that is, first I'd go talk to them. I'd hit them up on LinkedIn and let them know that you're interested.
Where I am, like today, where I am now?
Why not? You live close by, go have coffee with them and talk to them about the company. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
I would do that. I think it'd be super fun. Maybe they're going to ghost you, maybe not. But if they're right down the street, you could go talk to a recruiter and see what it's all about. Let me buy a Starbucks and I want to hear about the company. Do some looking online, but be careful. Man, the forums are so toxic. Everybody's going to hate something. Even at the best place is still something to hate.
It's like YouTube comments 5 years ago, right?
That's right, man. That's why I'm not on YouTube.
Yeah.
I let Mr. Beast handle that, and he's thankful that I do.
You gave him all your views.
That's right. He gets them all, both of them. But I'll say, if they're flying and they're soluble, then it's a good thing. You don't need to be in some glamorous place, because the major that you're focusing on, they don't care. They care about what quality of a person you are, and they care about the fact that you have the flight time. They don't care how good you are at it. There's no bonus points for the Blue Angels. There probably is, but they don't get paid more. They just go right on the seniority list as everybody else. And then, you've got other companies as well. Does Allegiant have a base in Nashville? I think they might.
That's a good question, Nick. I don't know if Nashville is a base for anyone.
Yeah.
But also that's my ignorance.
Yeah, my ignorance too. Apologies to everybody that's listening to this, like screaming in their phone right now.
I know that there's a Southwest plane flying over me every evening hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat, but really getting someplace that's going to give you quality. Like if you're going to a place and they're only flying you 15 hours a month, it's a waste of your time. And so you want to try to figure out what companies are going to be flying. And also, I've mentioned this before, and I think that this is a cool idea. Whatever airport you live near, go to that FBO and just become a person of known quantity in there and talk to the owner of the FBO and do some free video stuff for them and become that person. And all of a sudden, you're just like you're doing with your flight instruction, you can probably get flights on other people's jets and get some stick time. And that would be a pretty sweet gig to just fall into something that's going to help you continue to get time.
I love that, Nick. Yeah, you're very practical things. One of the best things you've said was like, man, just rip the Band-Aid off. Making sure that everything's in order first, you know what I mean? And I've worked really hard at that over the years, but eventually you just gotta have to do it or not. Yeah, that's huge. And then also, I love just building a relationship and offering a benefit in some way. Like we have the neighborhood we live in has a Facebook group. I'm sure it can be toxic at times as well. But I just posted on there and say, hey, any other pilots in the neighborhood? Like we've only been here about a year in Nashville. And so I'm just looking to build relationships with other pilots and ask questions. And that's the whole reason I reached out. I'm only going to know what I put myself out there and ask questions. So,
yeah, I think I've talked about it before. I was walking through my neighborhood with my family and chatted with a guy working in his garden. Turns out he was a captain at a major airline, and he wrote me a letter of recommendation after we became friends. Right. So you never know. Wow. Do find that out. And you would be really surprised. These people will always come up to you. Oh, you're a pilot. I know somebody else who's a pilot. And then all of a sudden you have a really fun relationship. And so the good part is you're early enough to where as you start moving forward, your aperture will open further and further and further. And you'll get a different view of what somebody's life is like working at a regional, or what somebody's job or life is like working on the private side, on the commercial side, whatever it is. And you'll be able to evaluate that without the risk of just jumping in with both feet. And that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And I love just kind of getting the feel and meeting and knowing kind of what I'm jumping into before. And another question I have is, that pay schedule, which it's the same for every airline because it's all, what's that word?
Unionized, yes.
Yeah.
Not everybody's unionized.
Okay.
So if you're with a larger company, it's going to be unionized, mostly, almost exclusively. If you're with a smaller company, you're going to be on a salary. And if you stayed in Nashville and you're flying some executive out of there, you would be the guy responsible for making sure that all the flight plans are done and all the maintenance is on schedule, and you'll be multi-hatting it. You might be in charge of the safety SMS systems or something else. So, but you also might have greater flexibility in your day-to-day life. And so with the union thing, basically the way that works is there's a pre-negotiated contract, and you get a seniority number. And every year you get an hourly rate. You're guaranteed this amount of hours. Usually it's in the 70s, like 70, 72, 75, something like that. And you're guaranteed to be paid that many hours, whether you fly it or not. And so you're going to at least make that much. Now, let's say you dropped your whole schedule. They're not at that point. All bets are off and you're just going to get paid what you fly. But if you flew that, you'll get a minimum guarantee for whatever amount of time that you fly. You'll also get some per diem for the amount of hours that you're away from home. It's a small amount, but it adds up over time. Usually there's a first officer scale and there's a captain scale. And it's probably 30 to 40% higher to be on the captain scale than it is on the first officer scale. And the pay rates increase up to usually 10 or 12 years. And then once you hit that mark, there's no more annual pay increase. Some of these contracts are 3,000 pages long. So there's lots and lots of ins and outs and things with that. And so the union side of the house versus the salary side of the house, which one's better? It comes down to what's most important to you and what your lifestyle is like with those 4 kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, that's huge. I've thought about doing a podcast where I'm just interviewing pilots and saying, hey, what's life like as a pilot where you are right now? Just so I can kind of begin to know where I want to be in this world.
Yeah.
Because of course my dream right now, I mean, I have a Delta A220 right here.
Oh, look, an A220.
This was my vision board. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, that's a swanky little plane. I was in the front seat of one of those 220s not too long ago. I was like, God, look at this thing.
Was it built in Mobile?
Yeah, of course. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah. And that, being from Alabama, like I was like, this is just kind of the vision right here, which would be really awesome one day.
Yeah.
But there might be other avenues, like you said, I mean, with Atlas or with the 135, or there's just a lot of different world. And so if kind of interviewing these pilots and these people in the aviation industry, I can kind of find the sector like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And it has nothing to do with airlines.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when you interview a pilot about their job, you are going to get a lot of their personal thoughts and ideals. And if you don't know that person, you don't know how you line up and mesh with them. And that's tricky because you could interview a person that is a check airman at Southwest that lives and breathes red and blue and yellow. And they could tell you that the 737 is the best plane they've ever flown and everything else. Or you could talk to somebody at United on a 777 and they'd tell you to pack sand with a 737 and they never want to do the routes. And I think that it comes down to grow where you're planted and make your own. I met the vice president from American Airlines once, and he put me straight when I was all down in the dumps about not getting to a major when I was stuck at the regional. He's like, quit complaining. Stop. You're obnoxious. Focus on where you are and love what you're doing because everybody else wants to do it. They don't get the chance. So every airline will have its really great things and it'll have its really lousy things. You might talk to the people at Delta that have a brand new contract and everybody on the outside's thinking, man, that's super awesome. They've also got flight schedules that are really difficult and there's a lot of fatigue calls and there's all these internal things that you can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please them all the time. It's an amazing company. And the 220, you should go fly it. It's great. But know that there are going to be days that are hard and there are going to be days that are awesome. And so celebrate the days that are awesome and learn from the days that are hard.
Yeah. And I think that's with every job, you know what I mean? It's like you have your highs and lows there. And I've listened to just stories on the podcast and stuff like that about you don't really know who you're going to be sitting to as a first officer or a captain. Like we're going to jive in the cockpit or we kind of like we're exiting the cockpit and see you later or we're going to grab a beer later.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like my buddy Al, he's a check airman at my company and he and I clicked so awesomely. And I mean, our personalities were the same. We had similar interests. He's at least 10 years, maybe even more older than me. I mean, like we text all the time, like we're like buddies. But then there's other guys, like I like block them out of my mind. I don't do the game where there's this no fly list or anything that I refuse to fly with somebody, even though I probably should. But there's nothing more aggravating than when you're on a 4-day trip and nobody wants to chit chat or like they're talking about a thing that you are object to. It's tough. And so that's just it. So, but also you set the tone a lot when you are a kind person, when you are interested in their life. If you can dive down and find that thing that they love and that they want to talk about, you watch the Lego pilots and the guy's like, so you like stuff? Living the dream.
Yeah.
And
start the conversation.
Yes. So find out what somebody else is and people love to talk about themselves. So that's usually how it goes. When you've got somebody that's a kind of a weirdo or silent or whatever, you just got to kind of make the best of it.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like that's what I do for a living. Sometimes I do a lot of interviews and it's like, hey, I'm listening to you and what I'm selling the services you need.
Yeah. You have
which is one question I have for you, Nick, is what brings you the most joy in your field right now? Like in aviation and as being a pilot?
It's tricky for me. And here's why, because this is what I love. I love being here with you. It just fills me up to be able to have this conversation. And so that's what I love about this as well is the people side of it. When I had my RV park, I love the people part of it. I loved helping. I'm a helper. That's what I do. My wife says I help too much probably. And so to me, that is where I get a lot of my self-worth is knowing that people appreciate me for who I am. And I try to connect with them because a lot of times aviation is If you have to go fly somewhere and you have to go through TSA and you've got the pat down and you're running late and all those things and you're really stressed out, like changing somebody's day a little bit, I think is super fun.
Yeah.
I hate waiting in line at Bojangles. I hate waiting in those long lines, but I do love that part and finding out who people are and where they're from. I like flying. Shoot, man. The sun's coming up, even on a red eye, man. You're flying back into some place from LA and the sun's coming up and you're just sitting back and you got your foot on the dash and it's beautiful. Hopefully you've got some like hot coffee.
Yeah.
So the flying never gets old. Plus you get to go to all these interesting towns that you'll never go to if you don't.
Yeah.
That's fun. And if you're lucky, the FBI will kick your door and tie you up like that one guy did in Boston a couple of weeks ago. The FBI like raided some pilot's room by accident. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want, Nick.
No. Yeah. Yeah. That was all over the news last week. And I'm certainly hats go off to that guy. It's got to be so crazy having somebody bother you. But, like in the same breath, you're going to have days where you're going to be in some hotel in the middle of nowhere and there's going to be some housekeeper outside vacuuming and you've got to get up early and it's loud or there's a fight going on in another room or all the things that life happens. And it's going to be frustrating and difficult. It's never perfect. So you have to find out for yourself what the good parts are of this job and enjoy those parts most of all.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah, I love that. I mean, just flying now below the clouds.
Yeah.
I get to see the sunrise. It's beautiful. So just being above them would be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just great. It's always exciting. And I always feel like a kid and like, how did I even get this lucky? So it's a great job.
What would you say the biggest fear is or the hardest part about the job?
The hardest part about the job is decision making. Doing the right thing for the people, doing whether you're going to sit in holding and considering all your fuel consumption and your landing weight and what the weather is and is it going to blow over and do you need to divert somewhere? And then if you do divert, like all of the, how do you manage? And then you're going to have upset people in the back and you're going to have to get gas somewhere or taxi at a new place where you've never been and follow their rules and not mess it up. Like they're the high level of just in case stuff. You don't think about that at first, but then as you progress in your career, you start thinking about that more and more. Or do we need to de-ice and how do they do the de-ice procedures here? And all of those things, that's what, as I go into, I'm a public person. I do the podcast. I got thousands of people that listen. And when I run across people at the airline that know me, I want them to know that I'm a good pilot and I'm somebody they can trust. I'm not some doofus or somebody that's just not good at it. So for me, my biggest fear is being found out that I'm not good at my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's just it. Making sure you think of all those things. It doesn't happen in one day. It's a long process. I still, every single flight, learning something new. And if you're not learning something new, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's an interesting perspective because I really didn't think, as someone who flies commercial, I was like, okay, are the airlines making these choices about weather? Are the airlines diverting and refueling?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Right.
Sometimes it's just one cell over Nashville and you can't get in and it popped right up. Or you're on approach and you don't break out and you have to do a go around. Or the guy was slightly high and fast and all of a sudden we're in the flare and we're going long and we're past our touchdown point and we need to call a go around or you could be dealing with a really bad spot and being brave enough and man enough and confident enough to call the go around and know that it's no big deal and that's okay. And go do that. Go arounds are always free. That's what I tell everybody. Unless it's your last one, you have no more gas.
Yeah, yeah.
All of those things, it just depends on the company and the situation. It's all situational. Sometimes you'll be flying and they'll tell you, hey, this airport just closed for maybe there's an aircraft stuck on the runway or something like that they weren't anticipating. And here's your new arrival airport. Here's your new fuel numbers, all the different things that you need. And then you've got to get in the iPad and learn about that airfield and brief it and make sure that you guys are all there. And I guess it boils down to crew resource management, which if you haven't heard about yet, you will learn about. And it's all about being able to communicate effectively on a team. not just pilots, but flight attendants, dispatchers, all that, like the things that you're not going to think about for a couple of years. So I'm probably ranting a little bit, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Well, and I've learned a lot from just listening to you guys on the podcast about what it takes to be a pilot. And I respect all of you guys so much because it's a lot more than just getting your hours in. What you guys are saying as far as the interviews is like, hey man, we need to know a lot of background. We need to know, can you make good decisions? What happens in conflict? And that tells a lot about someone.
Well, you know what? You have 4 kids. When you had your first kid, you don't know what to do with a 9-year-old, but you don't get a 9-year-old, you get a baby. The first thing you've got to do is learn when they're hungry and when to change their diaper. And that's all the time. And then you get into the groove. And same thing with flying. You don't start worrying about dispatch, worrying about diverting and stuff like that. You start learning what forward and back and left and right does on the stick. And you ease into it step by step by step. And that's your entire career, is everything's eased into. There's never this like massive threshold where you're learning 1,000 new concepts all at once and you immediately have to be good at them. So know that it's just like eating the elephant, and be confident and don't be scared of it. Know that you are going to learn that as you go.
Yeah, that's huge because there's a lot to take in.
There is a lot
right
to
now.
Take in. Yeah, and you're doing it.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, it's still intimidating. Don't worry, that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Every day, it's intimidating. Am I going to have a good landing? Am I going to get a tail strike? I just got a call from a guy that got a tail strike the other day. And so there's always threats. And that's what makes you have the right stuff to be a pilot, is that you are a person that constantly thinks about what is next. Right now, you're thinking about what is next for my career, and you want to plan that. You're going to have about 20 pivots between now and next week, and it's okay. And it's good.
Yeah. Taking that next step.
That's good.
Yeah. I love the analogy of eating the elephant. I mean,
yeah.
I could eat a lot right now, but not as
well.
not
You
enough.
can't, because you're too big for the plane. So
This is true. Yeah. I need to eat less now.
that's right.
A side question. As an airline pilot, I mean, are there any restrictions with height and weight?
No, man, there's so many real tall guys and then real big guys and gals, both. And I flew with an offensive lineman for the University of Alabama. He played for the Buccaneers as well. And he was a huge human being. I mean, just a big, big guy, and probably the nicest guy I've ever flown with too. And so, yeah, when you're in a small plane, yes, there's certainly weight and balance stuff, but no, I mean, you can be as tall or as short or as whatever. I mean, I've seen guys 6'8", 6'10", that kind of stuff. And the bigger plane you fly, the more comfortable it is. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I need to go bigger there.
I know.
The A220 was okay.
Yeah. The 220's got good space. The 350 is even better. The Airbus 350. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I'm 6'4". I was 260. Now I'm 215-ish. And all of that, you feel much better when you're back at your fighting weight. And so that's a good news story, and you can do it.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's good, man.
On Nick's other podcast, I'll learn what you did to lose 30 pounds, 40 pounds.
Yeah, I actually have a solo episode about it coming out here pretty soon. It's
awesome.
Yeah, fitness and aviation is important because you have to keep your medical. You have to keep your medical. Your family depends on it. So your fitness is part of your job. And so that, I mean, start that right away. I was not good at it, and I failed miserably. And I almost got kicked out of the Navy because I was too big. And so that's a real thing. I would certainly consider that as a part of your job. And it just makes you feel better, makes you think clearer, makes your brain bigger. It's good.
Yeah,
man. Well, Wes, dude, thank you so much. We've been talking for almost an hour, and I could talk for another 5 hours.
Yeah,
I think this is awesome.
I appreciate.
I hope you got some value out of this, and I am interested to know where you go and how you do it. So I want you to come back and let us know.
Yeah, will do. Hopefully, I'll be making that decision sooner than later.
All right, man.
Also, you'll have to let me know how to open an RV park.
I don't recommend it. It's a lot of work.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
All right, buddy. Armosa Studios, guys. Go check it out.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, spitfireelite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.